Introduction. In recent years, the concept of decoupling has come to signify a deliberate unwinding of economic, technological, and strategic ties between the People's Republic of China and the traditional powers of the North Atlantic, primarily the United States and, to a lesser extent, the European Union. Far from a single event, this breakup with North Atlantic hegemony unfolds as a protracted realignment driven by Beijing's pursuit of self-reliance and by Western efforts to safeguard supply chain resilience, protect sensitive technologies, and reassert strategic advantage. This essay examines the causes, mechanisms, and implications of China's decoupling and assesses how this process reshapes global power structures. Hegemony, interdependence, and the roots of decoupling. The post-1945 international order rested upon a North Atlantic core, the United States and its European allies, linked by security alliances, shared political values, and integrated markets. China's rapid entry into global trade from the 1980s onwards depended on this system. Yet the very interdependence that fueled China's rise came to be viewed as a vulnerability by both sides. From Washington's perspective, strategic competition with Beijing rendered critical technologies and supply chains potential instruments of coercion. From Beijing's vantage point, the dominance of the US dollar and Western control over key platforms, whether financial messaging systems or advanced semiconductor equipment, posed existential risks in the event of ideological conflict. As mutual suspicion deepened, calls for de-risking and self-reliance gave way to policies of partial disengagement. Drivers of China's decoupling. On the external front, a succession of US administrations escalated trade and investment restrictions on China. Tariffs imposed since 2018 burgeoned under subsequent measures, leaving average US duties on Chinese exports at over 124% by early 2025, more than 40 times higher than the pre-tariff era. Treasury officials have characterized this relationship as a mutual embargo, with ceilings as high as 145% on individual product lines. Such levies, combined with export controls on semiconductors and critical materials, signaled a strategic intent to constrain China's technological ambitions. European policymakers, while eschewing outright decoupling, have pursued de-risking. Tighter scrutiny of foreign direct investment in sensitive sectors, mandatory technology transfer safeguards, and the conditioning of subsidies on joint ventures. At the same time, the European Commission's insistence on local production in return for battery industry grants illustrates a more nuanced approach, seeking to retain engagement with Chinese firms while securing domestic industrial benefits. Internally, Beijing answered these pressures with the dual circulation strategy, enshrined in its 5-year plans. This framework reprioritizes domestic consumption and innovation, the internal circulation, while maintaining external trade, the external circulation, only where it reinforces national objectives. As one analysis notes, dual circulation is a blueprint for thriving in a hostile world, aimed at reducing reliance on foreign markets and technologies, even as China deepens its regional influence. Reorientation of trade and supply chains. The tug-of-war over tariffs and controls has prompted multinational enterprises to diversify away from China. Manufacturing footprints have shifted towards Vietnam, India, and Mexico, driven by the perceived need to avoid punitive duties and guarantee market access. Simultaneously, China has accelerated infrastructure and financing through its Belt and Road Initiative, forging alternative corridors into Eurasia, Africa, and Latin America. These investments not only secure new export markets, but also dilute the relative weight of North Atlantic partners in China's external economy. Within the North Atlantic itself, the effects are uneven. American onshoring subsidies under the CHIPS and Science Act have coaxed some production back to U.S. soil, yet at higher unit costs. European exporters, particularly in capital goods and automotive components, face both Chinese retaliation tariffs and redirection of Chinese demand towards Belt and Road economies. Thus, the center of gravity in global manufacturing is gradually tilting towards Asia's intra-regional networks, even as trade volumes remain substantial across existing Atlantic routes. Technological and financial sovereignty. Decoupling transcends goods. Washington's export controls on advanced semiconductors, quantum computing components, and artificial intelligence chips have spurred Beijing to invest heavily in domestic research, design, and fabrication. China now targets producing 70% of its chip requirements internally by 2030, a formidable climb from roughly 10% today. On finance, Beijing promotes the renminbi's role in international payments through swap agreements with partner central banks and expanded use of its cross-border interbank payment system, CIPS. These measures serve as hedges against potential exclusion from SWIFT and reduce the US dollar's unique privilege as the global settlement currency, long a pillar of North Atlantic financial hegemony. Impacts on North Atlantic hegemony. The unraveling of integrated systems has significant repercussions for the established powers. For the United States, forfeiting its role as China's principal export market risks depressing long-term growth in sectors from agriculture to aerospace. Persistent high tariffs have also contributed to inflationary pressures, complicating Federal Reserve policy. European economies, more exposed to China's slowdown, and have had to tailor monetary stances accordingly, an oscillation that underscores the limits of strategic autonomy when decoupling is only partial. Strategically, this disembedding of China from North Atlantic norms seeds spheres of influence elsewhere. As China deepens links across the global south, the lure of infrastructure financing and market access challenges traditional models of development assistance. In East Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, China's state-led projects often outcompete Western donors on speed and scale, prompting a reconfiguration of diplomatic alignments. Consequences for the global South and the emergence of multipolarity. The contest between a partially decoupled China and a protective North Atlantic bloc places developing countries in a delicate position. They must choose between entering supply chains aligned with Western standards, often accompanied by stringent governance requirements, or engaging with China under BRI terms that sometimes carry debt sustainability concerns. In practice, most nations navigate a middle path, seeking both Western investment in governance reforms and Chinese support for hard infrastructure. This dynamic fosters a more multipolar world, in which regional groupings and minilateral partnerships, rather than universal institutions, become the primary vehicles for cooperation. Looking ahead, prospects and policy challenges. Complete decoupling remains neither politically feasible nor economically desirable. The scale of Sino-Western integration, be it in climate-critical minerals, pharmaceuticals, or digital services, ensures ongoing interdependence. Yet the new equilibrium will feature segmented globalization, with friend-shoring among trusted allies and robust domestic buffers for strategic industries. For the North Atlantic, the challenge lies in balancing security concerns with the efficiency gains of past decades. Policy prescriptions include bolstering domestic innovation ecosystems, forging stable alliances beyond NATO to encompass economic collaboration with Asia's democracies, and reinventing multilateralism around shared technologies rather than solely around trade liberalization. China, for its part, must manage the risks of overcapacity and demographic headwinds while nurturing deeper domestic consumption. The success of dual circulation will hinge on reforms to enhance social safety nets, reduce regional inequality, and sustain innovation momentum without resorting to excessive state intervention. Conclusion. China's decoupling from North Atlantic hegemony is a defining feature of 21st century geopolitics. Far from a clean departure, it represents a gradual reweaving of economic, technological, and strategic ties into new patterns of alignment and competition. The dissolution of the post-Cold War consensus portends an era of contested globalization, where blocs coexist, overlap, and rival one another. Navigating this landscape will demand imagination and pragmatism from all parties, as they seek to reconcile the imperatives of security, prosperity, and planetary stewardship in a world no longer unified by a single hegemonic center. A heartfelt light. To every soul whose hand did give, you've helped me dream, helped me live. In darkest hours your light came through, with hearts so kind, so pure, so true. Your gifts, like stars in deepest night, have steered me gently toward the light. Each coin, each word, each silent prayer, a thread of hope, so rich, so rare. My eyes once dimmed now seek the skies, and slowly, clearer visions rise. Because of you, I dare to see the world again. its grace, its plea. Your compassion's flame will not just stay with me alone. It lights the way for others wandering through despair to feel the warmth of selfless care. You've shown what love in action means, in quiet ways through giving scenes. You've built a bridge from soul to soul and made the broken feel more whole. So let this thanks rise like a song, a melody both soft and strong. May your example gently call more hearts to rise to give. To fall into the joy of lifting pain, of planting hope where none remains. Your kindness walks beside me still, a light, a love, a living will.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to show your support.